Trudy, wherever you are, I'm going to hand it over to you for our next session.
Right, that can go over there. All right, welcome back, and we'll get started again. We get to another of our building blocks, and this one is exciting for some of you that are involved in churches, our leadership in churches, or participate in churches. This is when we really touch into how can the faith community step well into this whole conversation. And as we've all heard, it's not been pretty. It's not been graceful. We have these elements that are glimmers of hope and beauty, and we have elements that have worked really well, but there's also so much to do. So in that case, it's wonderful to have these two individuals representing two different churches that will be sharing with us today. So the ecclesial assessment is going to be presented as how does our church really step well into this conversation. And our first panelist is Pastor Tom Shrive, and he'll be opening our assessment part of this conference. And Tom is a former college football player, high school coach, and member of a rock band called Jade's 50s. Yeah, it's fun to look at his Facebook. He was grabbed by Jesus at age 17 years old and has never stopped thanking him for his grace in his life. He's been married to his wife, Kathy, for 40 years, has a delightful daughter named Dawn, and loves going to Cameo Restaurant with his 10-year-old granddaughter, Aubrey. He's a pastor at Gateway Church, not very far from here in Portland, and has been in ministry for 40 years, plus maybe. And so church thing has been very much a part of his life. He has taught here at Multnomah for 23 years. He serves on the advisory council of New Wine, New Wineskins, and his little note is that he cries every time he watches a Special Olympics event. I'd like you all to welcome Pastor Tom Shrive. And if the clicker doesn't work, just say.
Okay. Well, Trudy, thank you. I want to begin this presentation with the words in 2 Samuel chapter 9 on Mephibosheth. My presentation is called Mephibosheth and Gateway Church. It's 2 Samuel chapter 9. One day David asked, "Is there anyone left of Saul's family? If so, I'd like to show him some kindness in honor of Jonathan." It happened that a servant from Saul's household named Ziba was there. They called into David's presence. The king asked him, "Are you Ziba?" "Yes, sir," he replied. The king asked, "Is there anyone left from the family of Saul to whom I can show some godly kindness?" Ziba told the king, "Yes, there is Jonathan's son, lame in both feet. Where is he?" "He is living at home at Machir, son of Ammiel, in Lo-debar." King David didn't lose a minute. He sent and got him from the home of Machir, son of Ammiel, in Lo-debar. When Mephibosheth, son of Jonathan, who was the son of Saul, came before David, he bowed deeply, abasing himself, honoring David. David spoke. "Mephibosheth." "Yes, sir," he said. "Don't be frightened," said David. "I'd like to do something special for you in memory of your father, Jonathan. To begin with, I'm returning to you all the properties of your grandfather Saul. Furthermore, from now on, you will take all your meals at my table." Shuffling and stammering, not looking in the eye, Mephibosheth said, "Who am I that you pay attention to such a stray dog like me?" David then called Ziba, Saul's right-hand man, and told him, "Everything that belonged to Saul and his family I've handed over to your master's grandson. You and your sons and your servants will work his land and bring in the produce provisions for your master's grandson. Mephibosheth himself, your master's grandson, from now on will take all his meals at the table, my table." Ziba had 15 sons and 20 servants. "All that my master the king has ordered his servant," Ziba said, "your servant will surely do." And Mephibosheth ate at David's table, just like one of the royal family. Mephibosheth also had a small son named Micah. All who were part of Ziba's household were now servants of Mephibosheth. Mephibosheth lived in Jerusalem, taking all his meals at the king's table. He was lame in both feet. I read that story, and I use that sort of as a start of our presentation because Gateway, for many years, has wanted to be as generous to individuals who were disabled and as generous to the people of Portland who have disabilities as possible. But one of the things that has held us back in a basic, very practical way has been our facility. And I want to talk a little bit about what we're doing at Gateway. We're hoping here in May to put the shovel in the ground and add on a $1.2 million addition to our worship center and to our building in order to facilitate those who struggle with disabilities as well as those who are wrestling with any kind of physical issues. The reason I say that is because the building was built back in 1964, and it was built in a way that was essentially get people in and get people out. It had no real thought for disabled individuals. It had no thought for the stairs that it was going to require people to go up, and it isn't very welcoming. In fact, if anything, our facility, and I'm the pastor, so I can be honest about it, really facilitates isolation as opposed to invitation. It pretty well tells people you're not welcome. And if you want to come, you'll have to find another way of getting in, and you'll have to be very inconvenienced to do that. And so we're trying to say to the community and to everyone that everyone is welcome, that we want to be as generous. We want people to enjoy the table of the Lord, just like Mephibosheth enjoyed David's table. We want people to be able to come and enjoy the ministry of the Word of God and feast at the table of the Word, but they can't because our facilities just won't allow that to happen, which is why we're remodeling them and why we're putting such an emphasis on making it friendly and accessible to all people. So I want to just kind of walk through this with you, just kind of show you this, because I think in a practical way, you have to think through your facility. You have to think through, is your facility inviting? Is where you go to church accessible? Does it say to people who are disabled and struggle with disabilities or physical issues as well? And again, I'm just talking about facility right now. Does it open a friendly hand? Does it say to them, you're welcome? So I want to walk through this with you just to kind of show some things that we're thinking of and what's going to happen at Gateway, so you can see how we're trying to move people from isolation to invitation on a broader basis. So let me see here. There's our entryway, and it's an old entryway, and it's got steps right there that go up, and it's horrible. If you are in a wheelchair or you are disabled or have a scooter, you can't get there. You can't get up there, period, unless you choose to use this. Now, this was the wheelchair ramp and the scooter ramp that the church put on years and years before I got there, but notice the angles of this. This is very difficult for people to get up, and a number of our people don't even want to walk up it, number one, because it's on an angle, and number two, even pushing a wheelchair or even having a scooter is difficult, okay? It was an attempt on the part of the church to try to welcome people, but that awning only covers a certain section of it, so when it's pouring rain, guess what? You're going to get wet going up, and it's only got that one little door on the end there, and it requires you to maneuver in such a way that you can't even get into the building. And so as we began to look at the plans that we had for our campus, we started to wonder, what did we need to do? As you go inside, this is the inside. There's 8 stairs up to the sanctuary, and there's 8 steps down to the bathroom. Those 8 steps that go up there are on such an angle that it's really difficult for people to even walk up them. In fact, what we've done in the in-between process between breaking ground now is we've been live streaming our services over to a different building into a different room. But talk about isolating your congregation. You isolate a group of people off, and they're not able to be a part of the life of the congregation. Those stairs go up on an angle about like that, and they're very difficult to get up, and those stairs go down. You see at the bottom of the picture on the left, there's kind of a little area there. I actually stand there on Sunday mornings because I want to be there if someone falls. So if I want to be able to catch them is why I stand down at that corner section. And you can see that, again, it was built pretty much to get in and get out. And for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people that call Gateway their home, it's not a place that's very user-friendly. Those are the stairs that go down to the bathrooms downstairs. And when they get downstairs, well, this is another picture right here of the stairs going up. And so I stand down there by the door just to be sure that people have someone there to catch them. And I have caught a couple of people who have actually stumbled, which is not a very welcoming thing. Here are the bathrooms. Now, those bathrooms, the one on the right is where the men go, and it's a very small door. Those are the two bathrooms in the women's bathroom. You cannot get a wheelchair in there. You cannot even go. In fact, when I go in there, I have to turn around, and it's not easy for me. But again, this was built in the 1960s because they wanted to get something done and they wanted to have a building done, but they didn't think about what it said to the people and how isolating this can be. In essence, if you have a disability, physically particularly, you're not going to find our facility very friendly. You're going to be isolated and it's not very inviting. So this is essentially why we've taken on this project. And let me go back here. Here's this is part of the project. You see that center pole there with the Grace banner on it. That's a 3-level elevator. And down where that one family is down at the bottom there with the red shirt, that's one of the levels. That's a mezzanine level. And then the elevator will stop there, and then you can take the elevator up to the worship center right there, and also down to the third floor as well. That mezzanine, and the stairs are ADA, so they're nicely angled so people can actually walk on them. This is part of the schematic of our new facility. That's the drop-off area. Remember where that handicap ramp was? Well, that's the side where the handicap ramp is, and now it has a nice drop-off area that's all level and handicap accessible. This is another picture of the opening of the doorway going into the worship center. That terrible front that you saw with all those stairs, right? All of that will be torn out, and this is the front now with accessibility to it. This has been a project that we've been working on and been looking at for the last 8 years. And we've been working on making sure we had the right plans and the right place to put everything. This is the first floor as you come in, and you can see there that the elevator is immediately accessible to anyone who needs to come in and be a part of the worship center. We want to be sure everyone has accessibility to worship. And in an age of isolation, and I believe isolation and loneliness is worse than ever, I think people need a physical touch. That's why we're building this building. People need physical touch. They need to be able to come in and have human beings touch them and love them and interact with them instead of streaming. We do stream our services and we do stream them into the other building, but it isn't the same as actually being together in a larger setting where you can actually experience the human touch of somebody in your midst. So this is part of it too. That's the mezzanine level, so you can see that there's an elevator door in that banner that says peace. There's an elevator door right there, and that'll take anybody that wants to be part of the mezzanine level. We hope to have a internet area right there too as well, and then the upper levels where the worship center is. So this is the plan that we have so far at Gateway. And again, in an age of Facebook, Twitter, and an age of isolation where people are more connected via technology but less connected to each other, we wanted to create a facility that would help connect people to each other. We want to be as generous and as open as David was to Mephibosheth and invite them not just to David's table but to the Lord's table. So I wanted to show this because our facility certainly will be much more welcoming, and I think this is where it starts within a local church context. How people feel that you're caring for them and loving on them when they walk into your facility. So that's my presentation on From Isolation to Invitation at Gateway Church and why we're adding on to this. We hope to have this done hopefully by the fall or by December of this year. So thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on to our next participant, and this person, I am so excited that Linda gets to be with us, and I've gotten to be a part of their task force as a visitor that she's going to be sharing about at the church. So we've kind of looked at how does a church look at their facility physically, and now Linda will touch into a whole new area as we build on this building block. Linda Hernanda is married and the mother of 4 young adults ranging in age from 17 to 24. Her only daughter experiences Down syndrome, punctuated by years of medical adventures. Ron and Linda have been married and serving for 2 years at the beginning of their marriage as high school dorm parents with World Venture in West Africa. In 2015, with the support of their home church, Cedar Mill Bible Church, Linda launched Cup of Hope, a ministry that comes alongside moms of children experiencing disability with biblical encouragement and practical support. In 2017, she wrote and co-presented disability awareness training for Cedar Mill Bible pastors and staff with Steve Halamura. A disability task force grew out of their commitment to better serve their families and individuals living with disability. Linda is a graduate of George Fox University and worked previously in development and marketing, in education and corporate worlds. And her love for the families and the kids will be illustrated in her sharing today. Thank you, Linda. You can just stay right there.
All of you, kudos to you for sticking it out all afternoon. As I listened to Tom speak today, I was aware that he is really focused on architectural impediments to helping our disability population, when we are really in a place of working on attitudinal impediments that we see in our church, and I think you'll see that played out. Seated to my right, a mom began to explain that her 2-year-old had gained another diagnosis. In addition to autism, sensory processing disorder, OCD, and anxiety, this mom was sharing a new diagnosis of abdominal migraines. None of us at the table knew what that was. Well, as it turns out, neither did she. Another mom at the end of my table shared that the neurosurgeon she encountered shortly after her daughter's birth, they had just transferred to a new hospital, and this twin was there to receive the first of 26 brain surgeries to date. The surgeon came charging into the room, speaking forcefully about this impending surgery, but he stopped short when he noticed she had tears streaming down her eyes. He backed down, matching her mood. He started communicating with great sensitivity. My friend went on to say that she wrote him a thank you note after they left the hospital. And she has written him a thank you note every year for 13 years. This is Cup of Hope. This is the disability ministry that our church started. It's by moms and for moms. We have a team of 4 of us that meet with women monthly, and I have permission to share those stories with you today. If you are the parent of a child experiencing disability, you might be able to relate to some of these medical conversations. But if you're here wanting to learn more and learn how to come alongside families experiencing disability, don't be scared away. They and we need you on our team today. Before we dive into the ministry initiatives, Trudy shared a little bit about our situation. We have 4 children. And our daughter, when she was born, went emergently into the NICU for about 10 days. As she came out and we brought her home, we knew that heart surgery was imminent. About a year and a half, she was diagnosed failure to thrive. So the first of many feeding tubes were placed. And she and we learned to live with those for 14 years. But today, thanks to the grace of God, that daughter of ours, Kate, is 17, and she is sassy. She's outgoing, she's funny, she's sweet, and did I say she's very sassy? I find myself sometimes irritated when people walk up and they'll kind of do that proverbial pat. She's so sweet. And I've learned not to be irritated, but just to say, well, sweet and sour, but we love Chinese food. So disability ministry, what could it look like? And how do we as a church, a corporate church and individual churches, come alongside families that experience this chaos that comes with disability? At Cedar Mill Bible Church, we've been praying and wrestling with ideas and advocating the last 4 years. And some of the things that we've learned, I really want to share our journey as a church today and not my journey, but this is truly a progress report. It's always being massaged what we're doing. We're trying to do things better, but we're trying to do things well. So today I want to walk through more bullet points and narrative, some of the things that have happened the last 4 years in a practical sense, and then you'll have opportunity to ask questions. So if it feels like we go really fast, that's what we're doing. Okay, so the first step we launched was to do an assessment. I went out and met with individual families. We wanted to know what your family experience is like with disability. So tell us a little about the ages and stages of people in your family, what disability looks like for you, how it plays out day to day, and just gather this information. That helped us formulate ideas. And I have just one comment on that survey. The survey was hand-delivered. That is, I met individually with every mom because my heart told me from my own experience that they needed to know their church cared and that we were interested in hearing their story. These moms were an open book, and one of the moms whose daughter's 27 and very impaired, very isolated, she typed 6 pages of response to 10 questions. So that told us a little bit about what was going on. And as Trudy mentioned, in 2015, we started Cup of Hope. Just briefly, that's a tea that happens at my home once a month. It's a structured setting where we come to hear from God's word. We apply it to our parenting challenges and bear one another's burdens. So it's a place of hope for us. It's a safe place. It's our Cup of Hope. And a team of 4 of us prepare and host this monthly. With the launch of Cup of Hope, a group of us began meeting regularly just to consider how do we step out. Steve Hanamura and I were able to present a training program, and that as a result of that, then our task force was established. So we have 7 members on that task force, 2 pastors, and 5 of us who live with disability day in and day out. And once that was in place, then we were able to start more formal visioning and strategy for what that might look like. So here's the bullet points about what happened. Along with our ministry to moms, we started our first official dads gathering, and we're hoping to do another one of those. That got started. Our children's pastor is one of the members of our task force, and she was very instrumental in moving our children's program to a more inclusive model using inclusive language. Training was provided for all Sunday school staff volunteers about disability, explaining some of our more common disabilities and explaining what that looks like in our church setting. And then the biggest thing is Team Up, which is up over here. Team Up is a logo that our task force came up with. This is the front of a postcard, a 2-sided postcard, and we have these available at our children's check-in counter. And this identifies programs on the back that moms can take advantage of, Cup of Hope, one-on-one volunteers, and if they need any help in other directions and how they can contact us individually. Our buddy program was rolled out last year, and it provides one-on-one trained helpers to support students in Sunday school classes. So if a parent's interested, they email to a dedicated email line, and then support is provided to them by a volunteer who checks that and matches them carefully. Another really innovative idea, I thought, our children's pastor came up with the idea, when our kids check in, they get 2 pieces of a label, one for the parent, one for the child. If the child is a child experiencing special needs, then that logo comes up on their name tag. So whoever comes in contact with that person then knows there are exceptional needs, and I just need to be more aware. And the really neat piece that they just came up with is that they now have notebooks in the classes that contain what I call a person-centered plan. That is a one-page document that parents can submit, and it tells us about your child. So we want parents to know, we want to know more about it. We don't see your child as a diagnosis, so help us partner with you. So they tell us a little bit about the gifts and strengths of the child that's there, an overview of the disability, maybe the name and how, what their child experiences. And then they can really put anything on there that they would like us to know, from strategies that work well with their children, language that they use, certain words and phrases. I know as we were working with my daughter, it was really nice to partner with her school to use the same thing, so that repetition really was helpful for her all the way around. And then they can put on there things that might be trigger points. Things, please don't do this with my child under any circumstance. Or if you need to call me, this is what the behavior might look like when it's time to call me. So I love that, because then the teachers are equipped, the students get the best care, and it really honors the family and partnership. I believe 2 years ago, our staff produced a video close-up of a family sharing their testimony, what it's like to live with disability. It was very candid and raw. And it was really helpful for families to say, and see you, because when they see you from a distance, they think, oh, that family looks like they're okay. But to hear people share, sometimes you understand that we have an upfront face and we have a real face, and that doesn't always come out in church. Last October, we launched, hopefully it's our annual Disability Awareness Month. And we had several activities where we wanted to just inform the congregation about life with disability, what it looks like, but we wanted to put a face on that so they could get to know some of the people in our congregation more personally. Steve Hanamura was interviewed about his life and experience with church and blindness. And we also had a 3-member student panel. We had 3 high school students, 2 experiencing Down syndrome and 1 experiencing autism. And we very carefully scripted 3 questions and practiced a response so that it would be a little bit self-contained, because some of these kids will go off the map pretty quick. So we practiced that, and that was presented. It was delightful, and the pastor that interviewed did a great job. One of the services, the students received a standing ovation. It was just warm and personal, and I think myself, I just looked at that and thought, this is a time when they're seeing their real life and not just a diagnosis. So out of that, we had a couple of other things, but I'm going to move on a bit here. We had some highlights and some things that we have learned along the way. I think would be helpful if you're looking at, where do I start? What would that look like? So I'm going to share those right now just to give you some of the things that we've learned. Number 1, nothing that replaces the process of praying, waiting, and hearing from God. I believe that meeting people's needs in our churches is really creative problem solving, and our Creator is able to help us in the best way figure out what those solutions might look like. Number 2, ministering to our unique families really implies meeting people in pain, and we've heard that from several presenters today. Nothing's sanitized or washed over, but the raw emotions of a very full and challenging life. It's my belief and practice that one of the greatest gifts we can offer to moms and to parents is to ask them this one question: would you tell me your story today? Each of us in this room have a story, and this is particularly true of those experiencing disability. When you walk up and meet someone, there is all this history behind this, and painful history for these families. But giving parents a chance to share their life is a privilege for us to hear very clearly, and a gift to those who simply need to be heard. And I think this is a very initial step we can take from moving from isolation to invitation by inviting them to share. Lasting ministry in our churches will happen only in so much as the ministry is part of the overall fabric of the church. In other words, disability must happen from the top down. It's necessary that leadership agree together on the value of disability ministry and support it from the platform. Ultimately, disability is for all ages and stages and will impact every area of ministry. Let me share a very powerful example from last year. We have a young man in our congregation who experiences Down syndrome. He is very exuberant in his worship. And if you come to our church, you will hear him above everybody else. Occasionally he's out in the aisle and he is full on, his whole body is involved in worship. Every now and then he even goes down to the front and stands right in front of the platform and worships. So we're all aware of this young man. But nothing has ever been said until last summer. On Sunday morning, our worship leader just turned to the student and thanked him for his unfettered worship. She reminded us that we would all do well to worship God so freely. It was just a gift, and that is significant on so many levels. I hate the expression speaking to the elephant in the room, but that was really it, and it needed to be said. So, wonderful time for our church. Number 4, seek God's direction for specific entree points at your church. If you go online or read many disability books, there are checklists, there are ideas. This is how you start, this is what you need. But you really need to tailor those activities to what you find in the survey, what your family's needs are, your unique ability to help as a church, given the resources that you have and the family needs that you have. 5, take the process slow, making needed adjustments along the way. We need to prayerfully and carefully execute our ministry plans. We don't want to say, we've got something coming, it's going to be here, we're so excited, have one meeting and then have it fall off the map. That's very discouraging for families. So planning carefully is important. Okay, number 6. We've talked a little bit about language today, and I think all of us have to come to terms with what are the terminologies that we want to use in speaking about students and talking about disability. I want to give you a few examples, and this is something you'll have to figure out for yourself and your individual body. And as we talk to our families and students, talk to them, how would you like me to use? I mean, what words would you like me to use? Today I've used the word experiencing Down syndrome. That's what I've settled on. And I've talked about my Kate, rather than she's a Downs kiddo or a Downy or she's got up syndrome or whatever you want to say. She is Kate. And why is this so important? When we talk about Kate, we don't see her as having Down syndrome at home, day in, day out. She's a very typical child for us. Granted, we have a different sense of normal in our home, but she's typical. And once or twice a year, my husband and I will say, hey, honey, did you know Kate has Down syndrome? And we chuckle. It's usually after surgery, and her jaw is slack, and you think, wow, she looks like she has Down syndrome. But day in and day out, we do not see her disability. And I think there's a lot of families who just get used to that norm. But more important, our identity is rooted in our image of God and how we were created. Our identity is not a diagnosis. Defining a person by their disability is never appropriate. Disability labels are really a passport to services, and where they are appropriate is in the medical community, insurance, school, where you can obtain services that you need. But we've got to be sensitive to not using these labels and saying the Downs kiddo over there, okay? Hope you hear my heart on that one. Number 7, honor parent input. If you have a student who doesn't quite fit in the Sunday school class that's age appropriate, really discern where that student might best fit. We have a little friend who's 9. She has a disability called BFLS. She's in a first grade class this year. She just came from a kindergarten class, and it is a great fit for her. She's very happy. And I know if you've been in a Sunday school where they really try to keep moving kids ahead, that's a hardship for parents. So honoring your parents' preferences, or in some cases, a student preferences, is really significant. This one's a little bit more of a stickler, but we need to be training our teachers to shift their paradigm about how they view classroom behaviors. At Cedar Mill Bible Church, we are blessed to have a large number of Sunday school teachers who have taught for years. I think we have 2 that have taught for 50 years. Depending on when you attended school, your opinions about what appropriate behavior are vary. And also depending on when you grow up, how you see disability, what it is and what it isn't, are different. So it is incumbent upon leadership that we work to equip our t-shirts. I think it's the afternoon. We work to equip our teachers to help them love and serve our children as Jesus did. The goals of Sunday school class attendance, they're not uniform behavior and responses. The goal is to reach a child in the way that they will best receive God's truth and to communicate unequivocally with our love and our instruction that they are valued and they are loved by God. Here's one thing that I was really excited about, and it's really a gift that we give to our parents. Our Sunday school teachers are taught that they need to come up with at least one comment, very positive about the child, that they can share with the parent when they come to pick that child up. It's easy to say, wow, we didn't make it today. He was under the table all day, or he was really noisy or throwing crayons. And the parents have all heard it. If you're a parent of a child with disability in Sunday school, and if you've been kicked out of Sunday school classes, you know what they do. We don't need that. But if you can say, they were so quiet, they listened, whether they filled out the little form or participated in reading or whatever it was, it doesn't matter. Find something positive to bless that parent with. Along with this, we recently cleared space for a room for a couple of children who have really high needs, just don't quite make it in a regular classroom. And with the support of those parents, we have 2 people, they always work in pairs, that can take that child to a quiet space. We don't use that a lot, and I don't know a lot about that, but that was recently made available. How are we doing here? 5-minute warning. Okay, moving right along. Okay, and then please consider 2 statements, and these get back to the attitudinal things. The first one is disability is most appropriate, disability ministry is most appropriate when we understand it as doing with others and not to others. We are side-by-side ministers. We are joining hands with them. It's not something we're doing top-down. And the other thing is we endeavor to work with students and not on students. They're not a project. We are all created in God's image, and appropriate language is one of the gifts we can give to people who live in the margins. If you want specific ideas, you can go to Disability is Natural. Kathy Snow has a great website and publications, all kinds of newsletters online. There's examples for language, reframing things, and it's really a great way to get started and get some phrases in mind. So very quickly, we have a couple more things that we're looking at this point. Most of the things I've talked to today, they've all been in place for some time. But we have 3 things as we are in process. One is to do some more with our dad's disability group. The second one is we're currently looking into what a respite program might look like and how we can engage with that as our church, what possibilities are there. And then the third one is a new need that we've just become aware of, and that's how do we reach out to the 20-somethings who experience disability. Students who age out of high school or the transition programs pretty much fall off the map. They don't fit in traditional singles or college ministries often, and so how can we help them? That's a big nut to crack, but we hope to begin that with some listening sessions again. But we're waiting on God just to see how those doors open today. So thank you for listening.
Thank you, Linda, and thank you, Tom. And now Paul's going to take the trusty mic out to you to get some questions asked from you all. Anybody have some questions? Over here. Right there.
Thank you. I'm really encouraged by your church and the ministry, and I'm wondering if you have families that that have children with special needs that particularly seek your church out because of the program you have. And that's the one question. Then two, because it seems like you're so forward thinking, moving with how involved you are in this regard, do you find other churches seeking your direction and help in doing the same thing?
Great, thank you for the questions. I'm sorry, my brain is done today. I can answer the second question. I have to remind me what the first one is. We have had opportunity. It's been a real gift to share with other people. With our Cup of Hope ministry, we've had some moms approach us about that. That's a pretty easy thing to start if you have a mom with a heart for that. So yes, and we're open to doing that because this has all been a process of discovery. We are in process. We don't have it figured out. And we are all parents pretty much who have kids with disabilities, and so we're in a little bit in the margins too, but yes. What was your first question?
Do they seek you out because of what programs you offer?
Oh, because of the church. Yes, thank you. We have, and that's been going on for a few years, but at the time our children's pastor, before some of this was even in place, had to say, we would love to, but we don't have it together yet. We're not the church for you, because it just wasn't functioning in a way that we could really love those children appropriately, and that we had things in place, safety measures, supports, one-on-one, all of that. Now that we do that, we're having a lot of new visitors come one-on-one. So we're scrambling to find the buddy program or supports and get those in place.
Pastor Scheibe, I want to salute you for what you were doing. You had some rough problems to overcome there. At our church, which had been built in 1950, 6 years ago, we decided to do remodeling. Fortunately, we have in our congregation a church architect. So it was pretty simple to put in. Actually, our church entrance from the parking lot right into the sanctuary is on the same level. So we did a couple of ramp things inside to get people up onto the chancel area and so on. But the places where we were a little more subtle were in sound and light. You know, the light engineer said, and on the average in a room like this, you should have 20-foot candles. You have 2. Well, we knew we needed a little something for light, and not just for the disabled, but for everybody. And the same way with sound and the size and location of the screens and things of that kind. And then our other thing that we almost overlooked was enough spaces to put wheelchairs. Mm-hmm. You got to get some notches in those pews to put wheelchairs. So those are all things that are a little more subtle besides 96 steps like you had to deal with, yeah. But they seem to be important as well.
Yeah, we're going to remodel the interior of the worship center to accommodate some of those very things. And the interior of the back wall of the worship center will be all glass, and the lobby will be all glass for lighting. And we will expand. In fact, we're adding another door for that accessibility. We only have 2 doors, and we're adding 3, and we're expanding back and removing some chairs so that we have that room that you're talking about. As far as screen accessibility, it's very easy because we have a fairly small worship area, but we've thought through some of those very things. And fortunately, we have an architect as well who works specifically with churches. So yeah, those are great points. Sound too. Sound is a big, big issue.
I think probably both of your churches are very mission-oriented as well as home missions. And so I'm wondering what you are doing to encourage your missionaries to work with special needs populations.
So I don't know that I could speak to that. Pardon? Yeah, okay. Yeah, we're not involved a lot with that right now, but we haven't, nothing that I'm aware of, so that'll have to be something
I'll
on the
be addressing
table.
a little bit of that in my session. So that will be something that I will address. So,
Yeah, we support one of our missionaries. We support is an autistic, has a ministry to autistic individuals in, I think, the Philippines. I think. So we encourage that, and we also, let's see, I'm trying to think of the other missionaries that we have. One in Brazil, I think, is also working with those in disability. So we try to make that a habit in our church too.
I was just wondering, for both of your churches, I'm a member of MCC, and I was just curious, for disability, how for your individual churches have you dealt with communion as part of the process of disability? So I know that for many churches, a lot of times people will come up to the front, such as the Catholic Church, and there's a traditional formulation that goes with that. Other places will have different methods, handing things around. But for your particular congregations, how have you integrated accessibility as part of the process of communion?
Well, I know for us, communion's open, number one, for anybody who has a relationship with Jesus. So the tables are open, and everyone in the room can get up and go take communion. If you're not able to get up, we have ushers that will just scan the auditorium, walking around to give communion if you'd like. I've never felt a roadblock or ever really thought, does my child, no, we understood, we wanted her to understand what she was doing. I mean, she wanted to go up and get the juice and bread with everybody else, but it was imperative for us as her parents to help her understand. But that's an individual decision for parents, is kind of how our church does that. Does that address your question, really?
Somewhat. One of the things we do at our church that might be slightly different is that we have a pink card, and if anybody needs anything during service, or if somebody wants communion brought to them where we do prayer and other things, they raise the card. And it's a very simple technique that enables people to actually come over and to have one of the ushers or have one of the members of the congregation who's on the prayer team or on the healing team come over and be able to participate. So they have the feeling of inclusion, so there's not an exclusion that might happen. Because a lot of times I know for different people, they may not feel comfortable necessarily interrupting service. And it's a way for them to be able to silently indicate to someone that they may need help or that they may need something.
Yeah, Gateway, we serve communion once a month to everyone. We serve it in the first service to everyone, so those with disabilities can participate, and we serve to everybody. Those who have gluten, intolerance, I serve the bread to them personally, and they raise their hand, and so we do that. But in the second service, we invite people to come and get communion every Sunday. So we serve communion once a month in the first service. We serve it every Sunday in the second service. And if there are those who are in need, then we'll bring it to them and serve it that way. So that's the provisions we've made.
thank you, Tom and Linda, for sharing your story at your churches. It's exciting to hear things happening in churches that hopefully will inspire you, that you can also move forward in this conversation. And obviously, this is just the beginning. We are going to take a quick 10-minute break. The next two sessions will be a panel of people telling their stories. And I just hope that you can just stick it out and just be with us, because this is just building the building blocks and then moving forward as to how we can take this conversation and gain momentum and move forward. So that being said, I also want to let you know that our water issue has become a little interesting. But thankfully, we've been provided some bottled water, so that's over there by the Pepsi machine. So if you need some water, they're flushing out the system at this point, but you do have access to water. And so if we could gather again as quickly as possible at 3 o'clock, we'll rejoin and get started again. Thank you.